Hari. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Ki Jai. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. So today we are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 24, verse 37? 36. Verse 36. And this verse says, my appearance in this world is especially to explain the philosophy of Sankhya, which is highly esteemed for self-realization by those desiring freedom from the entanglement of unnecessary material desires. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Here, the word durasayat is very significant. Dur refers to trouble or dukkha, miseries. Asayat means from the shelter. We conditioned souls have taken shelter of the material body, which is full of troubles and miseries. Foolish people cannot understand the situation. And this is called ignorance, illusion, or the spell of Maya. Human society should very seriously understand that the body itself is the source of all miserable life. The modern civilization is supposed to be making advancement in scientific knowledge. But what is this scientific knowledge? It is based on bodily comfort only, without knowledge that however comfortably one maintains his body, the body is destructible. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, these bodies are destined to be destroyed. Nityasyuktaha saririnam. Saririnam, saririna refers to the living soul or the living spark within the body. That soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. For our activity, we must have a body. Without a body, without sense organs, there is no activity. But people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, that sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally, but they do not understand how to attain that perfection. Sankhya philosophy, therefore, as stated herein by Kapila Muni, is Tattvanam. The Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding of the real truth. Excuse me. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is clearly stated here. Okay, so this is Canto 3, chapter 24, and text 36. And let me read the verse again. My appearance in this world is especially to explain the philosophy of Sankhya, which is highly esteemed for self-realization by those desiring freedom from the entanglement of unnecessary material desires. Very nice phrase, unnecessary. Freedom from the entanglement of unnecessary material desires. Well, there's so many unnecessary material desires in the world today. And you can do a little survey. You go around and ask people, well, what would you like to achieve in this life? And they'll say, well, I want to be a doctor or I want to be a spaceman, or I want to be a rich man, or I want to be a very strong man. They'll come up with so many different wannabes, but they don't really think about, I want to be qualified to go back to Godhead. Yeah, there might be some people that say that, but most of the people want something material based on the body. What they don't understand is that I am not this body, and the body is constantly changing. If you think I am this body, I can ask you a question. Which body are you talking about? Because you've been changing, we've been changing the body every day of our life. The body is changing. We don't realize it, but when you're 6 years old, you have a certain body, and when you're 60 years old, you have a different body. So every day our body is changing. And by the way, it's not getting any younger, it's getting older. So we should understand I am not this body. I'm the soul, the eternal soul that's covered by the body. And the whole purpose of reading Shastric books or bona fide books of spiritual knowledge is to become free of the material concept of life and always be engaged in the spiritual activities of Krishna consciousness. So here in the purport it says, here the word durasayat is very significant. Dur refers to trouble or dukkha, miseries. Asayat means from the shelter. We conditioned souls have taken shelter of the material body, which is full of troubles and miseries. It's a very significant statement by Srila Prabhupada. Foolish people cannot understand the situation, and this is called ignorance, illusion, or the spell of Maya. In other words, the bodily identification is the spell of Maya. Human society is very serious to understand that the body itself is the source of all miserable life. Oh, I would agree with that. Modern civilization is supposed to be making advancement in scientific knowledge. But what is this scientific knowledge? It is based on bodily comfort only, without knowledge that, however, comfortably, uh, uh, I'm sorry, it is based on bodily comforts only, without knowledge that, however comfortably one maintains his body, the body is destructible. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, these bodies are destined to be destroyed. Nityas yokta saririna refers to the living soul or the living spark within the body. That soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. For our activity, we must have a body. Without a body, without sense organs, there is no activity. But people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Now, see, that's a very important statement. But people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Well, how do you get an eternal body? uh, we would have to engage in eternal activities, which are called Krishna consciousness in this lifetime. And that way we can be blessed by having an eternal body. The body that we have right now is not eternal, but it can be eternalized by practicing Krishna consciousness day after day, month after month, year after year. So it says the soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. Okay. For our activity, we must have a body. Without a body, without sense organs, there is no activity. But people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, that sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally, but they do not understand how to attain that perfection. Well, they use, different methods of trying to make the body eternal, and they're all silly attempts. In each one of those attempts fail. They might get frozen and hope that in the future they can be unfrozen when science has figured out how to either extend the period of birth, period of life, or uh, solves the problem of death completely, and then they'll be unfrozen and made eternal. These are all nonsense theories that are not true. No one's going to find a way of making the body eternal. The body is meant to be born, to uh, grow, to stay, to dwindle, and eventually die. There's no way we can stop uh, let's say there's different periods of the body, and ultimately it's going to die. So that means you can take as many supplements as you want. You can do as much exercise as you want. You can uh, uh, take all the supplements that you want, but you're not going to be able to make the body eternal because it's something material. The soul that animates the body with consciousness, that is eternal. But and the proof that you cannot make your body eternal is that the body is always changing. You start like a one-celled amoeba-like body, and then it evolves and becomes multi-celled, and eventually a full human body. After it takes at least 7 months until it looks like a human body, and then uh, after the 10th month, you're pushed out of the womb, and you have a fully developed human body. But from the moment of birth, you begin to die. So even though the body may be growing, but any moment, you can die. So we have to understand what is our real position. Although we have an eternal soul, the body we have is always subject to change, and you can't stop it. Okay, so some people take different types of, uh, they have different types of diets, they have different types of medicines, they have different exercise regimes or exercise uh, techniques, but the body is going to get old, get sick, and eventually die. There's no way to stop that process. That's why Prabhupada says the soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. For our activity, we must have a body. Without a body, without sense organs, there is no activity. But people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, that sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally, but they do not know how to attain that perfection. Sankhya philosophy, therefore, as stated herein by Kapila Deva, is Tattvanam. The Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding of the real truth. That's the definition of Tattvanam. Understanding of the real truth. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is clearly stated here. Okay, so how many people are attempting to get out of the body? There are some, but not many. Everyone's trying to figure out how to keep the body alive, make it eternal, which is impossible. The body is not something that's going to be eternal. The soul is eternal, yes, but not the material body. So all the different, let's say, theories of how to make the body eternal are failures. Uh, you can even by embalming the body, like the ancient people would embalm a body after it died, right? And it would look like it wouldn't deteriorate right away. You could maintain it. So when uh, some of these communist people died, they tried to maintain, like Lenin, they tried to maintain his body after death, and they showed him for I don't know maybe 20 years. They kept his body where and people could come and see it. But eventually, no matter what they did, it eventually became, let's say, corrupted by death, and eventually they had to get rid of it. Why don't you look that up? The body of Lenin.
Yeah.
People could go to some building and see the dead body of Lenin, and it went on for I think like 20 years or more, and eventually they couldn't keep it preserved, and they stopped it. But the Russian people could come and see Lenin's body for a long time. I think like 20 years or 30 years. He was on display, and his body was kept not alive, but they tried to stop it as much as they could from deteriorating. And then eventually they had to get rid of the body because the body's after it dies, it's going to deteriorate.
Yeah.
What does it say?
After the death of Vladimir Lenin in 1924, his body underwent a complex process of preservation and became a symbol of Soviet state. So, death and immediate plans. Lenin died on January 21st, 1924, from complications related to a series of strokes. Initially, the Soviet leadership did not intend to preserve body for long-term display. However, there was massive public demand to honor Lenin, leading to debates within the Communist Party on how to commemorate him.
How to what?
Commemorate, how to recognize his contributions, basically. And so then the decision to embalm, despite some opposition, notably from Lenin's widow, the decision was made to preserve Lenin's body. His successor, Joseph Stalin, played a major role in this decision, seeing it as a way to solidify Lenin's status as the revolutionary icon and legitimize the regime. Soviet
Legitimize what?
legitimate the regime of
Okay, the communist version. Yeah.
Soviet scientists were tasked with creating a method for long-term preservation. Two Russian scientists, Vladimir Vorobyov and Boris Jarsky uh, developed a technique to embalm the body using chemical solutions that would preserve Lenin's appearance. Lenin's mausoleum in 19
Mausoleum.
mausoleum in 1924, Lenin's body was placed in a temporary wooden structure on Red Square in Moscow. By 1930, a permanent granite mausoleum was built, designed by architect Alexei Shusev, to house Lenin's body for public viewing. This mausoleum,
Mausoleum.
mausoleum, is it right?
Yeah.
Mausoleum. This mausoleum remains one of the most famous landmarks of Russia today. Preservation process. Over the years, Lenin's body had undergone continuous maintenance by a team of scientists. The body is periodically treated with a solution of glycerol and potassium acetate to prevent decay. A group of scientists known as Mausoleum Lab monitors and maintains the body, ensuring that it retains its lifelike appearance. Despite the original intentions for temporary embalming, Lenin's body had remained on display for almost a century, symbolizing Soviet power and later Russian history. So it looks like it's still there.
No, it's not there now.
It's not there.
No.
According to this political symbolism, Lenin's body became more than just a physical relic. It
He
became
died, I think, in 1920s.
24, he died.
Yeah.
It became a powerful political symbol. So during the Soviet era,
So
Lenin,
there were thousands of people coming and being able to see Lenin's body, and it lasted a long time, almost a century. But I
but
don't.
apparently it's still there, Maharaj. According to, I mean, I don't know whether ChatGPT is not getting the correct information. Apparently, in 1991, after the dissolution of Soviet Union, there were debates about whether to continue displaying Lenin's body. However, as of today, it remains in the mausoleum and public access continues. So there's
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay.
there has been ongoing discussion in Russia about whether Lenin's body should finally be buried in accordance with his personal wishes. Various political public figures have argued for proper burial, but others see mausoleum as
Mausoleum.
mausoleum mausoleum as a key part of his Russia's historical legacy, making the issue a sensitive one. So, but I mean, according to this one,
He's
it is
still there.
there. It's still there.
People can come and see the dead body of Lenin. I would be afraid. It's like a ghost. You see, that's typical of communism. They try to attain immortality in different ways, but it's not going to work. The body is destined to get old, sick, and die. So no matter how many times they pump chemicals into the dead body to stay to look like it's whole, eventually it keeps deteriorating. Eventually you can't keep it anymore. It's going to deteriorate completely. Apparently they're able to keep it looking well. I mean, uh, they might be able to keep the head okay, but the rest of the body is going to decay. Eventually the head will decay also, but they can use a lot of different chemicals to keep it looking proper. In fact, there were two men, and their friend died. So usually there's a wake, meaning people come and have the last view of the dead person, the dead relative or dead friend. You know. And in the funeral parlor, they dress the body, and then uh, they'll put formaldehyde to keep the body looking almost like it's you know like not that it doesn't look alive, but it looks doesn't deteriorate very quickly. And because as soon as you die, the body starts deteriorating, but you can put chemicals in it like formaldehyde and to preserve it for a much longer time. And one day there was these two men, and they came to see their friend who died, and the last what do you call it, time to see their friend. And when they got a chance to see the body of their friend who was dead, one guy said to the other, and he said, "Hey, he looks better now dead than he was when he was alive." Yeah, because the undertakers, they have these ways of uh, you know they'll shave the body. Sometimes the hair keeps growing a little bit after a person dies, or the fingernails keep growing. But anyway, they make the person look so good. You know, uh, he looks better dead than alive. But there's no way they can maintain that indefinitely. So in the case of Lennon, is he still in you're able to still see him, huh?
Yes.
Wow, it's amazing. He died, like in 1924 or something like that.
Yeah. So as of 2024, this is exactly 100 years.
It's amazing that they've kept it looking like a human being. Um, it just shows you the power of embalming and using chemicals. But I don't think it can go on indefinitely. The body is destined to deteriorate. And I don't know if they're showing the whole body. I mean, I don't know. I was never been in Russia where you can go visit where he is. Okay, so uh, today's verse, which is Canto 3, chapter 24, text 36. And it says that modern civilization is supposed to be making advancement in scientific knowledge. But what is this scientific knowledge? It is based on bodily comforts only, without knowledge that however comfortably one maintains his body, the body is destructible. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, these bodies are destined to be destroyed. Nityas yokta saririna refers to the living soul or the living spark within the body. That soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. For our activity, we must have a body. Without a body, without sense organs, there is no activity. But people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, that sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally, but they do not understand how to attain that perfection. Sankhya philosophy, therefore, is stated herein by Kapila, as stated herein by Kapila Deva, is Tattvanam. The Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding of the real truth. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is clearly stated here. Okay, so you see, in material life, people are trying to do things that are impossible, such as maintain a dead body. You can maintain it for some time, but not forever, using different chemicals. When I say maintain, it's not alive, but it looks live-like because it's been embalmed in different ways. Now, the ancient Egyptians also embalmed bodies so that the dead person was they put different uh, chemicals and onions on the body so that it would not deteriorate quickly. And some of those uh, embalming techniques were so good that you can even see some dead bodies today that were embalmed maybe 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. I don't know about 2,000, but let's say, well, maybe. And they don't look completely like they did when they died, but they look somewhat. Uh, and it's it's an art, embalming a dead body. Um, but it's still dead. It's not alive, and it's not going to come back alive. Um, but you can sort of proliferate the time of it not disintegrating completely. Of course, if you leave it, if you don't do anything to the body, it'll eventually just disintegrate, and you'll just have a skeleton. But they can preserve it for a long time by using different chemicals. Okay. So Prabhupada says the soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. For our activity, we must have a body. Without a body, without sense organs, there is no activity. But people are not inquiring whether it's possible to have an eternal body. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body. Yeah, that's why there's there are different techniques to try and keep the body alive, or even after death, they try to keep the body intact so that people can see it, even though it's important. The body is dead. So actually, they aspire for an eternal body because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, that sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally, but they do not know how to attain that perfection. Sankhya philosophy, therefore, as stated herein by Kapila, is Tattvanam. The Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding of the real truth. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is a source of all trouble. Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is clearly stated here. So people are trying to stay in the body and trying to keep that body alive, or at least looking alive for a very long time. But the real truth is knowledge how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. And it says, Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is clearly stated here. So in devotional service or as a devotee, we're learning how to get out of the material body and attain our spiritual body. And that's possible. That's why it says the real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for that purpose. Okay. Are there any questions about this? You see, you can make a list of everything that is impossible to achieve, but yet people are spending their whole life trying to achieve it, such as trying to make the body immortal. The body is not going to be immortal. Right? So if it can't be immortal, meaning alive, then they try to embalm it so that it looks alive, like it's living, but it's not. So that's what they did with Lenin, and I think they're still doing that. Right?
Yeah. As soon as at some point when the government changes or the funding cuts off.
Yes, yes, exactly. Well, another way is that uh, they keep it looking intact with what is it? Nitrogen, I think.
So what they're putting.
They put them in this cylinder
Uh,
with, I think it's nitrogen, and you can come and see it, and it looks like the person's still alive. Of course,
the,
it's not moving, but
in case of Lenin, they were using glycerol and potassium acetate.
okay,
Uh,
yeah. So different chemicals can be used to embalm the body or to keep it looking like it's still a body and stop it from disintegrating completely. Okay, so we are more interested in the soul or the spark of the living soul. Um, the soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. For our activity, we must have a body. Without a body, without sense organs, there is no activity. But people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Well, but they're trying to make the body eternal. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, that sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally. But they do not understand how to attain that perfection. Sankhya philosophy, therefore, as stated herein by Kapila Deva, is Tattvanam. Tattvanam means the truth. The Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding of the real truth. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Well, look, I mean, obviously, when you die, you get out of the material body. But Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is clearly stated. So, what does that mean exactly? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Well, the way to get out of the material body is to activate your spiritual body, which is eternal. So even though we have an eternal soul, um, still we're subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. But what dies is the material body. So there's no way that you can make the eternal body immortal. So you see, you can make a list of all the things that are impossible that people are trying to do, and such as, for example, maintain the body of Lenin. He died in the 1920s, and they're still trying to keep his body intact with all kinds of chemicals. Uh, but Lenin's never going to come back alive again. So it's an artificial thing trying to keep his body intact. But they do that to, uh, first of all, give people a chance to see Lenin, even though he's dead, and make a statement of scientific, let's say, advancements of Soviet research. They can keep a dead body. They can preserve a dead body for a very, very long time. It costs a lot of money, by the way, and but yet they're not going to be able to bring back that dead body. So, what is the purpose? The purpose is to show uh, some kind of uh, scientific advancement. Uh, but that doesn't really solve the problem of old age, disease, and death. Uh, so, therefore, it's a useless endeavor, waste of money and waste of time, trying to keep the body looking like it's alive. So here Prabhupada says modern civilization is supposed to be making advancement in scientific knowledge. But what is this scientific knowledge? It is based on bodily comforts only, without knowledge that however comfortable one maintains his body, the body is destructible. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, these bodies are destined to be destroyed. Nityas yukta saririna refers to the living soul or the living spark within the body. That soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. So it's an effort to make something, to do something impossible. So if they cannot bring the body back alive, they embalm the body and try to keep it intact as long as they can. Or in other words, stop it from disintegrating or becoming uh, basically powder. The body will begin to what you would call begin to disintegrate. Uh, but they can use chemicals to make it seem as if it's not disintegrating. And but how long can they do that? Well, they can do it maybe 100 years, maybe 150 years. I mean, the Egyptians did it, and thousands of years. Uh, they still mummified uh, human beings in different uh, places in Egypt and other places where there are mummies they've been there and kept more or less intact for hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years. But the person's never going to come back alive. But they preserve the body in different ways. They use different types of chemicals and the natural things also to try and stop the body from disintegrating. It's an art. It's been done since ancient times. That's why you can go to museums and see mummified bodies of ancient people. They don't look like they're alive, but they look almost as if they're. I mean, they haven't become dust. They haven't disintegrated because the body has artificially been kept intact with these different chemicals that they use. Okay. So some of those chemicals are horrible. But of course, the person's already dead, so it doesn't really matter. So Prabhupada says, but people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, that sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally. But they do not understand how to attain that perfection. Sankhya philosophy, therefore, is stated herein by Kapila Muni, is Tattvanam. The Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding of the real truth. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is clearly stated here. Well, how do you get out of the material body? Well, you engage in spiritual activities. Uh, Everyone's aspiring for aspiring for a eternal material body, but that's not possible. However, one can get out of the material body and by living in their spiritual body. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, the sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally, but they do not understand how to attain that perfection. Sankhya philosophy, therefore, is stated herein by Kapila Muni, is Tadvanam. The Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding of the real truth. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for that purpose. That is clearly stated here. Okay, so by embalming Lenin's body, they're not they're not trying to get Lenin out of his body. They're trying to keep Lenin in his body. Uh, and these things are impossible. Well, you can do it for some time, but eventually the body's going to disintegrate. So, just like the attempt to go to the moon, that's impossible. But yet, people are spending millions and millions of dollars to go to the moon or go to Mars. So, there are many things today that are impossible to achieve, but yet people are spending their whole life trying to do it. See, this is the what you would call false ego of people who think they can control nature. There are the laws of nature, and one of the law is if you're born, you begin to die. You can't stop it. So some people try and stop it by taking vitamins and doing other things like that to keep their body looking young and beautiful as much as they can. And they can do it for up to 100 years, but eventually they're going to die. So they're trying to do something that's impossible to achieve, just like going to the moon or going to Mars or space, traveling. Uh, it is actually impossible to go from one planet to another. Each planet has its own atmosphere, and there are, uh, you know, people on each planet. But each planet has its own mix of material elements. And like if you go to the moon, you won't see any living entities there. But there are living entities there. But they have subtle bodies on the moon. So even if you go to the moon, you won't see anyone. But there are many people on the moon. It's because they have subtle bodies. So you have, uh, you know, uh, earth, water, and different elements of a body. And then you also have subtle elements like mind, intelligence. So the bodies on some planets, like the moon, are subtle bodies made of mind and intelligence. So even if you go there, you won't see anyone. But those people are there. They just have a body that you can't see with the naked eye. Uh, Now, these are subtle things. And how do we know it's a fact? Well, the Shastra explains it. The people on the moon say, so you have like mind, intelligence, and ego. Those are subtle elements of the body. And then you have earth, water, fire, ether, and so forth. Those are gross elements. So on the Earth planet, we have gross and subtle body. But on other planets, people may just have a subtle body. So if you go there, you won't see them, but they're there. Uh, like if you see these astronauts, they have these astronaut clothing, which is they're really expensive, and they're to help that because if you don't have the special clothing on, you would die very quickly because the atmosphere on these other planets are not the same as the atmosphere on the Earth. So it's basically an impossible task to, let's say, build houses on Mars and have people to live there because the construction of the human body on the Earth is not the same as the let's say atmosphere on these other planets. So they need to have these very expensive uh, outfits to keep themselves alive. But it's a losing proposition. We're not meant to live on other planets that have different types of what you would call different types of atmosphere. But yet they're trying to do it. And it's very expensive to have a space outfit. Uh, so people should learn how to get out of the body. That's what it says here. Uh, so Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding the real truth. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Well, we're trying to stay in the body eternally. And that, of course, is not possible. But yet we're trying to make it possible. So these are all, uh, you know, uh, these are all nonsense things that people are trying to do, impossible things, but yet they want to make it possible. Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is, how to get out of the material body, not how to preserve the material body. Okay. So, are there any questions anyone would like to ask? See, this is a very interesting thing. You see how the Russians have tried to preserve the body of Lenin. Lenin died in the 1920s, and they're still preserving his body. And people can come and see it. Of course, Lenin is dead. He's not going to come back alive. But they're artificially maintaining the body with different chemicals. And why do they do that? Oh, well, they do that to prove the scientific advancement of Soviet Union. They can keep a body looking or intact and stop it from disintegrating. It's going to eventually disintegrate, but they can embalm it in different ways with different chemicals and make it look like it's almost living. And so people can see the dead body of Lenin. You go to Moscow, and there's a place you go to. People wait in line. Sometimes there's really long lines, and you eventually see Lenin's body. But what's the benefit of seeing Lenin's dead body? Uh, it gives an idea that there's scientific advancement. The fact that they can keep a body intact after it has died, the person has died. But is that scientific advancement? It's not really scientific advancement. But the idea of embalming a body and making it stopping it from disintegrating has been going on for thousands of years, and you can go to museums and see mummified bodies that are 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 years old. So it's not a new thing trying to preserve the body. But what does it achieve? It doesn't achieve anything. It's not really an achievement. It's maybe a historical phenomenon to try and preserve the bodies, the dead bodies, but you're not going to bring them back alive. So, what's the use in doing it? There's if you embalm a person who was famous, and then people come and look at it, and they see. Well, wait a minute. If you really want to see something like that, you can go and see the body of uh, oh, what person is that? Um, yeah, the uh, is a very famous devotee. Um, it was alive 1,000 years ago.
Ramanujacharya.
Yeah, Ramanujacharya. You can go and see his body. He is preserved without using any chemicals. His body is still intact. I'm trying to think if I saw it. Where is it kept? What?
Sri Lanka or Kanchi.
Yes,
In
yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj, you had seen in Sri Rangam.
Sri Rangam. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I saw it. I saw it once in Sri Rangam. But what does it look like? Well, it doesn't look like a living person, but it is intact. It's not completely disintegrated. Yeah, I don't think they used any. I'm not sure, but I don't think they used any chemicals for Ramanujacharya. I'm not sure. Maybe you can find out if they used chemicals to maintain the dead body. I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong.
But the issue,
What does it say?
Ranganath Swami Temple, Sri Rangam, is there.
Okay,
See, it's basically mummified.
but did they use chemicals to mummify it? I'm not sure. I always thought that they didn't.
No harmful, no harmful chemicals are used. Instead, a mixture of traditional substances like sandalwood paste and saffron are applied to preserve the body.
Okay, good. All right. They still use preservatives, but they're not artificial things.
There's another question, I think. Mataji, you want to go? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
My question is, was Prabhupada in his eternal body before he left and was able to talk to Krishna to write the translations?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
Okay. Like when you're in your eternal body, it's like, does that mean you're completely spiritual and you're like closer to like Krishna? So I was wondering, like, was he in his eternal body, like he was more spiritual and he was able to communicate with Krishna?
Okay. Well, let's put it like this. Prabhupada's body was not, uh, let's say, mummified like the Egyptians, but his body was put in a grave and covered completely with salt, so that it does not really disintegrate. Um, but a pure devotee's body is sacred. Therefore, they don't burn the body of a sacred devotee, but they do, let's say, preserve it in salt and bury it. And usually, uh, people, uh, ordinary people, they'll burn the body, and they have these, places where you can, after a person dies, they cremate the body. When in the case of pure devotees, they bury the body and cover it completely with salt so that it doesn't deteriorate. You can't see the body because it's covered completely with salt, but it has not, and that's to preserve it in some way or other. So that's all I know. I don't know a lot more than that. I've seen, different. Uh, I've seen people, the great personalities who die, and then instead of embalming the body so that you can see it, they cover the body completely with salt and bury it. Or in other words, they put it in the ground and then they cover it totally with salt, uh, and uh, uh, and that is a way of embalming or preserving the body. But you won't be able to see that. You'll just be able to see the grave where the great personality is. But they're preserving the body from being eaten by, let's say, insects or whatever, um, and because the body is sacred of a pure devotee, so they don't want insects and animals or anything like that desecrating the body of a great devotee. But they do have, like, you can go and see where uh, Srila Prabhupada is resting, or his body is resting, but you won't see it because it's in, it's been buried, but covered totally with salt to preserve it. So that's about all I know. Maybe other people know a lot more about this subject. Um,
So can you get your spiritual body before you leave, or like by doing spiritual activities, like can you get into your spiritual body before you leave?
well, yes, because if you use your material body in the service of Krishna, it becomes spiritualized. Okay, so what's the difference between a mundane body and a spiritual body? Well, the spiritual body is conscious of Krishna, and eating only prasadam, and engaged in Krishna's service. So that is considered a spiritual body as opposed to a material body where you're just eating and passing stool. I mean, you still are doing everything that an ordinary person does, but it's all directed towards serving Krishna. So then you're considered to have a spiritual mind and body. By that complete dedication to devotional service for Krishna. Therefore, the bodies of very elevated devotees are not burned. Why do they burn bodies in India? Because they don't want the person to be attached to the body, so they burn it. Otherwise, even after death, the person who died will try and stay near where their body is. If it's in a cemetery, they'll try and stay near it or try and stay in it even. So they burn the body so that the soul does not try and continue to associate with the material body. So you see, the soul can never die. Okay. But when a person dies, they can still try to stay near their body because they're in ignorance. So that's why the Hindus burn the body so that the soul does not stay near the dead body. And it goes on its journey to the next body. But if you don't do that, then people, because of their, let's say, ignorance, even after they died, they want to stay close to the body that they had as ghosts, and that's why the Hindus burn the body. So they powder it and then they throw it into the ocean. So there's nothing that the soul can hold on to. The whole, let's say, culture of what to do with a dead body. Well, there are different things that people do with dead bodies. There are some, but as far as Vaishnavas go, for regular devotees, they cremate the body. And for very exceptional saintly devotees who have achieved a lot of great things, they will bury it and surround it with salt, and then so that it doesn't deteriorate. It's still underground, it's still buried, but it's covered completely with salt to preserve it, so that the animals or bugs or whatever don't attack it. And then there are some extreme exceptions, like Ramanujacharya. You can go and see his body today in Srirangam, although he left his body over 1,000 years ago. But you can go and see him. Is he embalmed? I don't know if they embalmed him exactly. Maybe they did, but I know because I saw him. I saw it myself, and he's almost completely intact. And people go and have darshan of Ramanujacharya, who died 1,000 years ago. So there are a lot of different ways of dealing with the so-called dead body. But for ordinary people, the dead body is burned so that there's no attachment to it. and the soul can, continue on its journey without being attached to the dead body. So ultimately, the soul is eternal. So it'll get another body, either a spiritual body or a material body, but you can never actually kill the soul. What people try and do to avoid, the soul from getting attached to its material body is cremating it. Then there's nothing it can be attached to, and then throwing the ashes in the ocean or the river. So that way, there's nothing for the soul to be attached to, and therefore it can go on to its next body. If you don't do that, then some souls will stay attached to the dead body, and even though it's in a cemetery or whatever. That's why sometimes people are afraid to go to cemeteries at night, because they think that they'll be spooked by dead people, and it's a fact. It's definitely a fact, because people who you can't kill the soul. You can kill the body, but you can't kill the soul. So some people who are demoniac, uh, they try to enter into the bodies of living people and control them. And usually, when a person is sleeping, but saliva comes out from one part of one from the mouth while they're sleeping, and it smells really bad. That means that a soul that some ghost has entered into that body, and a lot of it happens to a lot of people. They when they're sleeping, very foul smelling saliva comes out of their mouth. That means that a ghost has entered into the body. Therefore, it's very important to be very clean, bathe regularly and cut your fingernails, and, have good hygiene. And when you sleep, you don't keep your mouth open, and you don't have saliva coming out of your mouth. Uh, Otherwise, a ghost can enter into the body. That's why chanting Hare Krishna all the time is very important, so something like that doesn't happen. Now, how do you know a ghost has entered into someone's body? It's when they start talking nonsense. They'll be walking down the street talking to themselves, and they talk nonsensically all the time. That means they're being controlled by a ghost. And the ghost can enter into their body when they're sleeping, and then when they wake up, they have this very foul smelling saliva, uh, you know, covering part of their face, and that means that a soul entered into their body while they were sleeping with their mouth somewhat open. Therefore, one should be, bathing at least twice a day, maintaining good hygiene, and uh, you know, also going to sleep early and waking up early, and not staying up late at night. It's not a good thing to do that. Otherwise, it's possible that you can get ghostly haunted. And once you're ghostly haunted, you're no longer completely in control of your own body. The ghost has a subtle body and can enter into your body and now control it. Ghosts are people who are highly sinful in their life, and They're people that have committed suicide or other horrible things, and they try and take control of another person's body so they can engage in sense gratification. When you have a subtle body, it's hard to engage in gross sense gratification. But if you enter into the body of a living person, the ghost can control it and engage in sense gratification. So the best thing is always have good hygiene, always chant Hare Krishna, and don't eat, meat and all these other bad things or intoxicate or anything like that. And therefore stay in the mode of goodness. Then the ghost cannot, inhabit your body or enter into your body. Ghosts are people who have to enter into the body of a living person so they can enjoy sense gratification. They can't have sense gratification if they have a subtle body. They can only engage in sense gratification if they have a gross body, so they have to take control of somebody else's body. And they enter into it usually at night when people are have the mouth a little bit open and they're salivating and they have this very bad smelling saliva that's coming out of their mouth. That means the ghost has entered into your body. Then you have to go to someone who can help you de-ghost. The best thing is to have good hygiene. Always take a bath once, twice, or 3 times a day. Always have clean clothing. Always cut your fingernails and chant, of course, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so thank you very much. We'll stop right there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.